Hello everybody and welcome to the first ever episode of my podcast that I've been chatting about for absolutely years about getting started on. I'm Callum Smith, aka The Funk, God-given name that I give myself basically, which is so cringy. And I'm going to call my podcast TheFunk-Cast. And there's my cringy introduction done. No more editing on from this point. I'm just going to talk, no script. Got some Q&A questions and answers here that I wrote down, asked you guys on Instagram and TikTok, see what you want. But first off, I'll get started. Why the funk? It started in 2017 in my very short MMA career that I had. 3 fights, all amateur, 2 wins, 1 losses, 18-year-old lads. And I was in fight camp for my first ever fight. And I remember it was the night after Ben Askren fought, who did he fight? I think it was Damian Maia, and he got beat and he retired. My style of fighting, if anyone's ever watched my fights or any of my grappling comps or anything like that, I'm a very shoot from anywhere type of guy. And there's a relentless nature to that, and that's what I tried to take on and who I tried to emulate, and that's how I got the name The Funk. But I'm waffling. Start off with the questions that you guys have sent me over. So it's an introduction to this podcast. First things first, people are asking, what's the podcast going to be about? I'm not just an MMA person. Background of who I am a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt coming out next gen. People will probably know me from TikTok, Instagram, or in the gym. People who are watching this, I work in science. I work in a lab. I've got a bachelor's in biology. Apart from that, other interests are politics. I'm really into my politics at the moment. I have always been. I've done some work experience at the Labour Party. Used to be a member of the Labour Party. I'm not as far left as you think, and I'm not far right. I'm quite centralist. So I'd like to go into them talking points in the future. Any guests that want to get on this, I've got 3 big niches there that seem to be very popular, and I'm not doing this as a way to get famous or anything like that. I'm doing it because I've been on podcasts before. I'll link them in the description, and I love doing it. I love communicating. I love talking. If anyone knows who I am through TikTok, Instagram, gym, again, work, all these things, they'll know how much I love these subjects. And if I get an opportunity to get amazing guests on and talk about these subjects, me, myself learn about them, and then you, this could go into something special. So if anyone out there wants to be a guest, talk about any 3 topics or any topics, if you're into gardening and you want to ask me about it, if I find it interesting, I'll have you on. I don't want this to be a podcast like, I won't give any other podcasts out there heat, but where they're all talking and trying to emulate each other's. I want this to be my own little thing where I'm learning myself, and hopefully you can, and make it a little bit entertaining as well. So we'll get on with some of the questions. First one, the only cringy question as a part of this is, spend a day with your younger self or future. I always like to look to the future. In terms of my younger self, I think I try to not look back, but I always have a lot of compassion for who I used to be. I can be really hard on myself, but it's never been about what I've done in the past. It's about how much I can do in the future. So I'd always like to learn from future me, see the mistakes I make, and see where I am in life, see what happens. If this podcast works out, if I've got 1,000 episodes and then I have Joe Rogan on it or someone like that, well, it's becoming a little bit conspiratorial nowadays, but I still do like him, and that'd be a guest I'd love to have on, or be on his podcast maybe. Going a bit quick, we'll slow things down now, get into the nitty gritty of things and what you guys probably want me to talk about, as my audience right now is fairly small. We're getting to the MMA side of things. So as I said, I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. I do teach classes at my gym, 6:30 in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, members only. If anyone's in the gym and they're interested, just give me a message and you can pop down and we can get started with some training. As long as you've trained before, pay your membership, more than welcome to come down. So how far are you hoping to take your coaching role? For me, I've not really thought about this until this question's been asked. I love coaching. I love it way more than competing and fighting, by far. I don't know what it is. For me, fighting, I didn't like the individualism of it, the loneliness. I like being a part of a team. I like seeing people get better. I like communicating. I like exploring new ideas and learning myself. In me teaching jiu-jitsu, I've become a lot more technical. I'm a young lad. So I've always kind of used athleticism to jump up the ranks with my jiu-jitsu. Like my leg lock game was based around my flexibility. Teaching other people things like leg locks makes you really sit down, and all these things I've learned throughout the years, the amazing coaching that I've had with Paul Rimmer, Adam Ventry, Ellis Hampson, all these people, Paddy, you know what I mean? These people who have taught me throughout the years, it's made me realise the little small details that was so important that they taught me back in the day, I completely neglected. So when it comes to troubleshooting with other people, my students, I start to see, okay, this is what I've been getting taught all these years long, and it's making my game better when I train as well. So as far as how far I want to go with my coaching, I don't really know. My goal for next year is to hopefully get my black belt, and I've got to really prove to my coaches that I'm worthy of it. So that's what I'll be working towards. So that's going to be quite individualistic, and the coaching aspect, I hope to never stop doing my 6:30 classes, because I absolutely love them and I love every person that attends it. And I really just, I don't have any goal. I don't want to coach anyone to become ADCC world champion or UFC world champion. Or I don't want my own gym or any of these things. As of right now, I just enjoy coaching my class and improving myself and helping others improve. Because this is a skill over the years, which, looking back, I'm at the point now. I've always talked about jiu-jitsu. Your blue belt's like just graduating school. You know, you got your GCSEs, you've got a base, you can write a sentence, you can do a little bit of maths, you know each thing, you understand what's the difference between World War One and World War Two. Your general knowledge is quite decent. You get your purple belt, that's like your degree. You can specialise in something. You can really sit down and teach someone who is literally a beginner on this subject. Going to brown belt, it's an upgraded purple belt, yeah. It's just like a master's degree. There's not much difference other than it's just harder to get to, and it takes just a few more years of dedication to get to. And where I want to be as a black belt is that PhD level. And if I was able to have a PhD level knowledge in something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or grappling, and pass this on to other people, that's an amazing skill. The level of knowledge that I have right now, say it's a master's degree level in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I can teach that to people who are white, blue belts, coming through the ranks and help them. It's just a journey for me to go on. It's just a way for me to get to that next step and just really refine who I am, and as a jiu-jitsu and as a person as well, how I communicate with people, how I talk to people, how I interact, how I get to know who other people are. You know, the people who come to my classes, you know, I've got doctors, I've got barbers, I've got a few barbers here, and you know, you've got everything, the whole wide range of the human condition turn up to jiu-jitsu, and I expose myself to them by teaching other people and training with them, and it's an amazing thing. And as far as how far I want to go with my coaching, I am waffling now, is I'd really love to just get to a point where as a black belt, I feel like I could teach any level. I could teach any level jiu-jitsu. I want to become a really good coach, but I only want to do it in my gym, and I don't want to overstep anyone. I just enjoy doing those 6:30 classes. The idea of, you know, you get to your PhD and that's a doctor, isn't it? I want to have that professorship where I can teach people who are coming through to that black belt route, and I'm a long way off that. And I only want to ever do it in my 6:30 classes. I have no intentions of opening up my own gyms. For one, first thing is I could never do this to Paul. I love the gym, I love that man. I would never create my own gym in this city with the own name. Maybe if I went to another city and did it, great. But other reason as well, I grew up, people don't know, my uncle's Darren Smith, you probably know who he is. He owns a bodybuilding gym himself, and I've been around Paul Rimmer all my life, and I just know what it's like, and it's not fucking worth it. Honestly, running a gym, you have to have a lot of preparation going into it. It's not in my mindset right now, and I'd never do it in this city, only if it was under the Next Gen name and there was space for it to be there, but there's not. So I don't even see that as a part of my life. What I want to do is this. So, answer that question, waffled on again, is I just want to get to the point where I can teach any belt. I don't care whether they become world champions or anything. I just want to know I'm teaching good jiu-jitsu. So we'll jump on to the next question now. The relentless march on time and its effect on our knees. And this is from one of the lads in the gym, Carl. One of the people who goes under the radar for what he does for the gym. Carl Mountfield, that is. He does the breakdowns for Paddy's fights, Molly's fights, all UFC fights, Cage Warriors, all these people. The brain this man has and his way with words and his pattern recognition is unmatched. Maybe Paul, obviously. But you see them sit there and they'll have a conversation and they'll be talking about fights from like 30 years ago. He's like the hidden Danaher of our gym. But he's made a good point. I was kind of under the impression that I was immune to injuries, and it's the typical fallacy of a young man to think you're unstoppable. And the worst thing that can happen to yourself in fighting, in mixed martial arts, not fighting, but in this sport that I do, specifically jiu-jitsu as well, is yourself. And I rolled with a prodigy blue belt who come down. I think he competed against one of the Tackett brothers, a younger one, and he had me in a knee bar, and I literally, I thought, I'm all right here, I'm safe. And MCL torn, and I've torn it again in that space of time, in 3 months, because I didn't learn that lesson. So yeah, I've learned as you get older, you're not invincible. Things like this I could do when I was 19. I thought that you would always have this like stretch arm, strong body, sit in submissions, everything's gonna be okay, and you know, knees, don't worry about until you're older, elbow shot, all these things. But as I've got older, I've definitely realised that the relentless march of time does catch up with you, and the inevitability of it crushing your knees is so true. But don't let that deter you from jiu-jitsu, because I'm a dickhead, and the reason I done my knee in is because I basically chose to. I sat in that submission. I didn't think it would really hurt me, but I've learned that lesson, and I will never do that again. And it's the part of growing. And you talk about the relentless march of time. What comes with time is learning, in my opinion, and I am very young, and I'm not really mastered anything yet. I'm learning, and yeah, obviously it's sad that as you get older, things happen to you and it deters you physically, but you get stronger up here, and the stronger you get up there, the more you can reflect on that and the protocols you can have in place to protect your knees, which I'm talking with my physio right now about doing that. And hopefully, I've been training this year, which has been great. I did fall off my bike last week, and I trained 2 days in a row, and it's killing. So I've took a day off from training. I still exercise, but anything to do with the knee, I'm just trying to avoid for the few days. And it does catch up with you, the knees, but if anyone's looking for any advice on this, I'm just learning myself. So if you've got anything in the comments yourself, comment down what you think you should do as you're getting older, how you protect your knees, how you protect your body, all these things. Because I'm getting to the point now, I'm only 25, and people are probably thinking, fucking hell, I remember when I was 25, so young. But I've had my first proper injury now, and I start to like old person stuff. Like I have a 6:30 class. Like I think I'm actually the youngest person. Maybe Marwan, who's a legend, and he's 19. He just comes to every fucking class in the gym, but he's like the young lad who comes. But apart from that, it's really just me who's one of the young ones, and I like getting up early now. I don't like staying out late drinking. I don't like partying. I'm becoming an older person, and I've really learned with my knees as well. Next question, yapping once again. I'm going to go on to the more MMA stuff now. Little quick answer to this question. For any funny gym stories, there is fuckloads of funny gym stories out there. And I think it's about having the right guest on and not really making sure I talk about the right things. There is you wouldn't believe it in Next Gen over the years, the amount of characters that we've had come in. To name a few, we've had maths geniuses who wanted to learn how to headbutt properly. There's so many that can't even come to the top of my head. But we've had some hilarious gym stories over the years. Some great people come and go. And it's for the time if I have someone on from the gym, which I hope to. If anyone from the gym wants to come on, we've definitely got some funny stories to tell there. And it's like anywhere else. You've got nearly 200 members now. Over the years, I think there's probably been 500 people who've come into that gym. And there's going to be some funny stories there. Next question. Best way to learn from instructionals. Best way to learn. It really depends on what belt you are. I think the marketing of instructionals are targeted at white and blue belts. And they probably don't need it. Say, for instance, it depends what age you are as well. If you can only train 3 hours a week, an instructional, as long as you're really just focusing in on one thing and not doing information overload and getting the right instructional, someone like a Lachlan Giles, I wouldn't just jump straight into the advanced Danaher stuff or anything like that. It would supplement your game. But if you've got the time to train 8 hours a week, and that's all you can dedicate to jiu-jitsu, you've got 9 to 5, you've got a family, just train it. Even if you just come in and your body's sore and you just drill slow, that's much better for you. Do what your coaches are teaching you. Don't jump the step and try and do the advanced stuff first and learn the instructionals. There's no best way to learn an instructional. Everybody's different. Some people I just watch the video and then try it and troubleshoot and see what comes from it. Some people write it down. Some people have to listen. We've all done this in school, all different types of learning. And it does apply to jiu-jitsu. But my biggest piece of advice is if you're starting off, you're a white or a relatively new blue belt, don't give yourself information overload. Don't try and jump ship and learn as many instructionals as you can, because generally they can become quite advanced. If you can find a really good beginner's instructional just to learn the basics of each move, that'd be fantastic. Fucking old school basic Gracie shit probably works. You know, how to do an Americana, how to do a triangle, and then focus primarily on what your gym is teaching you. Because if you're at a good gym, your coach should be tailor-making a game for each student in the gym based on what their teaching is. Like in our gym, we really do focus on, because any body type can do it, is taking the back and choking them. And you look at Marcelo Garcia is the prime example of someone like that, and then Gordon Ryan. You got someone Marcelo who's like 5'8", or Gordon Ryan who's a Goliath. And what have they both got in common? A very common submission. What's 50% of the submissions in the UFC, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? It's a rear naked choke. So learn the basics from instructionals and try and not jump the step and become too advanced too quick. That's my bit of advice on that. And that, I think, is the best bit of advice in terms of learning on instructionals. If you're a purple belt and above, go ahead. Just find an instructional that is of good price. Don't overpay for it. Try not to do crazy shit. You know, like, it's good to learn buggy chokes, but if you're like 5'4", you're not going to catch many of them. So there's no point buying a buggy choke instructional by Craig Jones that is, as he says himself, marketing for white and blue belts who are really desperate to climb that ladder. And this is the thing about jiu-jitsu. It's why, I don't know who it was, I heard someone say it the other week and it's really sat with me. You don't see someone do Thai for like 10 years. You don't see many people without fighting, like hobbyists. Why is that? You don't see them do wrestling or boxing, just hobbyists for 10 years. You might see a few, but the level you see in with jiu-jitsu now as a new sport and it's growing, it's all because of that grading system. It's all because people want to jump the next step. And when people say belts don't matter, I don't give a fuck about a belt. They're probably just bitter about where they're at. Because at the end of the day, belts do matter. It's a personalised journey. It's not about competing with someone else and saying, oh, I tap him, I'm a blue belt, but he's a purple belt. No, it's about where you're at. And it's a testament to where you're at in your life, in terms of, if you're someone who's trained for years and you're still only a blue belt and you've never got your purple belt, ask why. Is it your game? Is your game poor? Do you talk about competing and you're not competing? Are you consistent with your training? Do you interact? Do you roll with different types of people? These things, it's a personalised journey. It's not about how good you are. There is some purple belt. The belt where you get good is purple. Anyone who's purple should be good. After that, some purple belts tap some black belts, but you might have a 21-year-old beast who's, got unbelievable genetics and has been doing jiu-jitsu for 5 years, or a 50-year-old black belt who's been training for 10 years. Who wins in the role? It might be the purple belts. They're probably trained more, and the more athletic, the younger. These little things, but it doesn't mean that that guy's not a black belt. It's an individual journey. So in terms of why jiu-jitsu is being, I don't want to use the word exploited, but these instructionals are just feeding you the carrot. You see, like, easy way to get your blue belt, and like, it depends on what your gym's like, but any good gym will be very individualistic. A blue belt is a belt where you just show up consistently. Some people will get it quicker based on the consistency that they put in or how good they're getting. They might prove that they're that good by winning golds and loads of comps. But at the end of the day, until you're a purple belt, which is the belt I'd probably say start looking at instructionals, the more complex ones, I just focus on, unless you're a really competitive blue belt, I just focus on the basics. You're learning a language. At the end of the day, you get your blue belt. It's like, I can speak a little bit of French. I always say this, it's like, I'm a blue belt in French. I got a GCSE in French, then I got a B. And I can speak French in words. Like, I can say, je mange le sable, which is, I eat the sand. It makes no fucking sense, but I know how to say it. That's like rolling for a Kimura and then falling back for a leg lock. Well, I know how to do a Kimura and I know how to do a leg lock, but putting together doesn't make sense. When you get to that purple belt point is when you can start speaking paragraphs, when you can start putting things together that is fluid. And if you're watching instructionals, if you're just a brand new blue belt or an early days white belt, you won't really get that yet until you've trained long enough to really have it click. Oh, that's how things come together. That's how, when I'm going for an arm bar or when I'm going for a knee bar, why it's the same mechanism, or passing guard, I pass guard this way to bait that. These little things where you start talking in paragraphs, it's not one, it's baiting, it's the cheesy acronym of human chess. That's where you want to end up getting to when you're looking at instructionals. So yeah, yapping once again on these points. I don't really like this Q&A format. I might do it again before I get some guests on, but I want to get guests on and I want to talk about other stuff as well. So we'll get on to the last question. And to be honest with you, I've been approached on going on MMA podcasts before to talk about MMA. I only watch the big cards and I only watch the main cards. People will ask me, oh, did you watch the I haven't got a fucking Amanda Ribas fight on the weekend that was on the prelims? I don't fucking know. Like, I haven't got a clue. I watch John Jones, I watch Aspinall, and this question here is John Jones or Aspinall. I said this the other week. John Jones will fight Aspinall. He was 23 when he fought Shogun Rua. For most of you people who are calling John Jones a duck, calling him a shit house, all these things, you wasn't even alive when John Jones was fighting Shogun Rua. You wasn't alive when he was fighting Stephen Bonner. You wasn't alive when he got destroyed by Matt Hamill. That's a joke, by the way. But you was, like, these fights he had years ago, he was an extremely young man. Yes, he's grown up. He's had tough fights. He's had to learn throughout the years. And yes, he's never avoided a fight. He didn't avoid Daniel Cormier. He beat him twice. He didn't avoid Gustafsson, the hardest fight of his career. There's a case that he avoided Ngannou, but he had a lot of personal problems going on, albeit through his own demise. I'm not a big John Jones dick rider here, you know what I mean? Or not politically correct to say that, unfortunately. And I just think John Jones is the Michael Jordan of MMA. And this, if they do this fight, the UFC, July 4th is the Friday next year, 2025, International Fight Week, if they do an Englishman coming in to try and beat an American for the greatest heavyweight fight of all time, I can't fathom. John Jones is not avoiding. He's just using it as a way to get money, negotiate. If he just said straight away, I'll fight Aspinall, what are the UFC going to pay him? 5 million, 10 million? If he waits this out for a few months, says Pereira, and then you're getting... Because let's be honest, someone fights for a pay-per-view, they're famous for a week, and then it dies down. I know John Jones is crazy famous, but he's still not McGregor level. You want to keep this beef going on. And Aspinall knows what he's doing now. He's really smart as well. This is what makes this fight. If I had to pick, if I had to gun to my head, I'd pick John Jones. I've doubted John Jones since I was in year 7. And when he won the second DC fight, I stopped doubting him. Hopefully, this is the fight. But if you're talking about the last ever fight in his career, potentially, against an interim champ who's not even got 3 rounds of fighting in the UFC accumulated, a finishing machine, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who was born into the sport. John Jones wasn't. He did wrestling in school. He started MMA when he was 19 or something, and he was in the UFC at 23. If John Jones beats Aspinall, upcoming boxer, it's going to be insane. July 4th weekend, wow. But there's 2 ways I see this fight going. I don't see it going to a decision. If it was a decision, it's John Jones. John Jones decisions anyway. You talk about the controversial fights he has, but he has little ways. He's the Michael Jordan of MMA. He has little ways to show to judges that he's won rounds. Because these judges aren't the best judges in the world. You watch John Jones, he's like that. After he's won a round, these little things that tells, and we don't know what Aspinall's going to be like 3rd, 4th, 5th round. I've watched Aspinall's loss recently. I've watched Aspinall live, and I watched his loss. I never watched that live, but I watched it back, and I did see him get taken down, and I did see him jump for triangles. What I worry with Aspinall is he too much of a jiu-jitsu guy when he's on his back? You look at who gave John Jones the hardest time grappling. It was Gustafsson. And he wasn't a jiu-jitsu guy. He wasn't going for triangles. Because he knows, you open your guard up, you open your legs up against John Jones. That reach that he's got that makes him Michael Jordan of MMA, he's lands and elbows from it. It's going to be a problem. So, I think if it goes to the floor, Jones could finish the fight with elbows. If it's on the feet, you've got to watch out for Aspinall's knee. It could be a decision, oblique kicks. I can't say for the life. People are saying, oh, Aspinall could submit him. No, he can't. I don't think he can. The guy's training with Gable Stevenson, the best wrestler on the planet, and he's training with Gordon Ryan, best jiu-jitsu guy on the planet. Like, no. But he does go backwards with his chin in the air. And Aspinall has a rocket of a right hand. An absolute rocket of a right hand. And if he catches John Jones coming back, with John Jones standing to southpaw with the right hand over the top, that could be the biggest upset in MMA history. I said this in the gym to the lads the other day. I said it will be the biggest upset, and they go, no, it's not. Aspinall's plus 155, all these odds. No, it's the story. You talking a guy, youngest ever UFC champion. I believe he's now joint for most world championship victories. That's defences and claiming the titles of fights, or world championship fights. Undefeated. He is undefeated. No matter you say the Matt Hamill fight or the no contest with Daniel Cormier. And he loses his last ever fight to a young Englishman who's up and coming, where John Jones has spent hours in that octagon. Aspinall's professional MMA career is not even an hour. It will be the most insane ending, the most unfairy tale ending of all time. Unless obviously it goes to a trilogy, but I do see that fight happening. Gun to my head, I think John Jones finishes him 3rd round, ground and pound, or if I was to put a bet on, I'm not a betting man, but if I was to be a betting man, I would put a bet on Aspinall knockout in the second round. So there's some of the questions coming up to 30 minutes now. I've been talking for absolutely yapping. I hope you enjoyed it. It's the first one. It'll only get better from here. I'm going to keep uploading. Thanks to everyone for listening. I'm going to keep trying to get better layouts, better cameras. I'm doing this on an iPhone, 15? No microphone. The audio might be shit. The video might be shit. This video might not even go up. It might be that terrible. But I've enjoyed doing it. I've enjoyed talking. I did waffle at first, but I felt like I got into it. I would like to talk more about other stuff than MMA. I do love MMA. You can see how passionate I get with it. I love the sport, I love the coaching, but I don't want to be on here and be a podcast. Be one of these podcast guys you see now and you just go on like they're experts and everything. I want to learn a few things and I want to talk about things I actually know about. Again, I'm really into politics. I've got a degree in science. I work in the field. I've got other stuff I want to talk about as well. So if there's any of those type of questions, hit them over. I'm all ears. And I'll try and upload this on all platforms. It might not even come out on video. It might be audio only. But I'll keep uploading. And this is something I want to get to 1,000 episodes of. And that's when I won't give up until I'm on 1,000 episodes. Even if every single video gets 2 views, I will do 1,000 episodes of this. After my first MMA fight, I had a cringy moment where I sat there and I did an interview after it and I thought I was like fucking Conor McGregor. And I was saying I will be world champion one day. And since then, life's humbled me. And it's humbled me in a nice way because I was faking it then and I'm not now. No matter what happens, I want to upload these 1,000 podcasts. Unless I get fucking cancelled into oblivion and, you know, what do they call them now? Starman or fucking something like Starmet and Stalin cancels everybody because I said dick riding with John Jones, you know, and I end up in prison and I can't upload them for the rest of my life, which I very doubt will happen because I'm partially a fan of Storms at the moment. We need a bit of stability in this country. We don't need all these right-wing, you know, populists or left-wing populists telling us this is the easy quick fix. Yet there is problems where they're correct on, but there's also problems if you really look into the reform, what they want to do with this country, where, you know, you want to go to the NHS and you want to get healthcare. Okay, pay insurance then. Are you for that? Is that what you want? Because that's what Farage wants. Anyway, I'm going into politics and I'm very centralist. I listen to both sides. I'm not a fan of Starmer. I think they could be better out there for sure. But as of right now, when you've had Liz Truss, Boris Johnson, all these things, it's a bit of stability. The country's legal system hasn't changed. He doesn't sign off the documents about free speech. It's been like this under the Conservative rule. It was like this under Boris Johnson's rule, who's all of a sudden like again. The country's been like this for years, freedom of speech and all like that. It fucking has. It's been going down the drain for absolutely years. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll keep going with this. And one day, I might really make it with this. I might not. But we'll see. Anyway, sign out now. All the best.